Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing details. Today, we are discussing one of the most attractive Grand Seiko models I've encountered in a long time. This is the Grand Seiko Heritage Collection High-Beat Automatic SBGH287, based on the historic 44GS case design with a high-beat 9S85 Grand Seiko movement. This was a 140-piece 2021 model year limited edition for the Southeastern Asian Grand Seiko distributors and their points of sale. So this would have originally been sold in Brunei, Hong Kong, Singapore, Macau, and Malaysia. This was a regional special edition that incorporates elements of several different modern Grand Seiko watches into a remarkably distinctive and appealing package. So it's 40 millimeters in diameter, in stainless steel. It's 13.6 millimeters thick. It is 42.6 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip, and it is 19 millimeters between the lugs. On my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, it fits great. It's very short across the wrist, the legacy of that original 1967 44GS model. The timepiece is suitable for a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters circumference. You can see on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, it wears well. It's not particularly thin, but it's also not particularly thick. And the stepped profile of the case means you should be able to slide it underneath cuffs, even tight dress cuffs. Down the barrel one more time. Now we'll take a look at the hardware and the software. We have large rectangular scale alligator leather in a semi-gloss black. We have a monotone stitch. You can see we have a folded edge. There is some bolstering or stuffing to give it volume and substance. Calfskin on the bottom. This is a brand new Grand Seiko factory strap. And the nice thing about Grand Seiko factory straps is that they are just buttery, smooth, supple, soft, and pliant straight from the factory without any breaking in. They feel, quite honestly, like butter on the wrist and in the hand. The buckle is a substantial single fold, single swing arm, thick gauge stainless steel deployant clasp with trigger release so it can't prop open by accident. And then we get to the case. And I should note that this case shape, so-called 44GS, named after a watch that came out in 1967, which in turn was named after the 4420 movement inside of that watch. But it's one of the most distinctive Grand Seiko case designs, angular, multifaceted, remarkably enduring. It manages to be evocative of the past without looking dated in any way. You see there's a combination of polish and satin, and I should talk a little bit about that polish. This is done against a spinning tin plate on a Zalitz machine. Grand Seiko has its own word for Zalitz polishing. They call it Zaratsu. And while it's not quite the samurai sword polishing it's made out to be, what it is a type of black polish executed entirely by eye-hand coordination and craft knowledge. It takes about 3 years to master, and these cases are entirely hand-finished as a result. The level of movement finish you'd find on a high-end Swiss watch can be found on the case of this Grand Seiko. We haven't even gotten to the dial yet. You could see that the peaks of the lugs actually ride up along the edge of the inverse conical bezel. It's actually wider at its outer rim than it is at its base. And this is done so that the lugs can have a nice broad arcing substantial volume, but we also don't have the bezel sitting on top of the lugs, which would create an awkwardly thick watch. So sinking the bezel down and then riding the lugs up the flank of the bezel allows the watch to be thin and the lugs to be beautiful. Taking a look at the crown, you can see it has a Grand Seiko logo on it, slightly countersunk into the case band. Now this is a screw down crown, and the watch, though heritage inspired, is 100 meters water resistant. So on a different strap, you could absolutely take it swimming. The dial. Note that this is not a sunburst radial grain. This is not the Kirizuri. This is not the Skyflake. This is its own special kind of dial. This is being described by Grand Seiko as snow on a blue lake. So you have snow on the lake reflecting the blue of the sky during cold weather outside the studios that make these Grand Seiko movements, which I believe is the Morioka studio. Grand Seiko has 2 different locations, one for Quartz and Spring Drive, one for mechanical movements, and the mechanical movements are made in Morioka. You can see that not only do we have a remarkable frosted grain, almost like a tremblage pattern to the dial base, but it has a wonderful luminescent soft glow with that lovely sky-inspired blue tone, and from different angles it twinkles and reflects light across its innumerable facets. You can see too that the hands, the logo, the frame for the date, and the hour indices have all been polished, faceted, and alternately polished and satinated by hand. So these components are made manually using micro tools by artisans who specialize in these components. So if you look at the hands, for example, you could see that there's a razor sharp break between the top of the hands and the beveled flanks of the hands. They are mirror polished, finished off with diamond paste, and optically as smooth as any literal mirror surface. Dial furniture on a Grand Seiko is always placed by hand, so not only is it handcrafted, but it is hand placed. We have a black on silver date disc. We have an unusual use of a polished seconds hand. On most Grand Seiko watches, that hand would be fired blue. Well, here, to give all of the features that are not the dial the same monotone silver-white look, they have left that seconds hand alone. You also note that the watch is not spring drive, so the hand doesn't sweep completely smoothly, but it sweeps quite smoothly compared to a standard 4 Hertz movement. This is in fact a 5 Hertz movement, 10 beats per second, 36,000 vibrations per hour, like a Zenith El Primero. The second hand is smoother, and against the ear, it beats faster. We also have a stop seconds function, and that will allow you to synchronize to a reference time. We also have a quick set for the dates. You can rapidly set it. I love how serify the font on the date disc is. Turn over the movement. You can see that caliber 9S 85. Limited edition, 140 pieces, 140 years of Seiko. The movement has a 55-hour automatic winding power reserve, pivots on 37 joules. It is watchmaker assembled and regulated, and when the time comes, watchmaker serviced. Lovely stripes across the rotor and bridges with black polished screws, and it's adjusted in 6 positions, which is one more than the standard for Swiss chronometers, and the watch is said to run no worse than -3 + 5 seconds per day, so it also runs better than chronometer tolerances. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.